But I think we've got everybody here who's going to be here. And I know you all feel like I do. This is, you're coming to hear a fine speaker and you're going to be entertained, and you all have had lots of cabin fever. And it's kind of nice to have a day when we can poke our heads out. And here you are indoors. So I think this is a tribute to not only to the center, but to Dr. Bill Green, as I call him. We had a terrific series of speakers last year. And this year we've lined up a number of fine speakers again. I think it's going to equal last year's. It is traditional in January that we start out with Bill Green, and then we're going to be followed with, I want to get the dates right, March 2nd, Dick Bergen, editor of the National Motorsports, magazine editor and National Motorsports announcer, is going to head a panel on super modifieds. And we'll have a super modified in here in a couple weeks, and that'll be on the floor. Should be a very good talk on March 2nd. And then in April 13th, Carl Ludvigsen is coming from England. And Carl has about 60 years history as an author and commentator on motorsports, and he will be excellent, I'm sure. And then again in May, we're going to hear from Bill and Michael Argetsinger, who are going to be announcing and showing for the first time their new book on Watkins Glen that's being done for Arcadia Press. Arcadia Press is doing a series of magazines on NASCAR tracks, and Bill and Michael have put together this great history, many pictures in it, and it's very reasonably priced. I think it's about $15, $20 range? $20, and I think I've seen a lot of the proofs, and it's going to be a good book. And then we're delighted to say that Corinne Economaki is coming back in June 15th. As you know, we have a lot of the Economaki files here, 75 years of National Speed Sport News, and she was here a year and a half ago when the Dyson Foundation presented it to the library. And she's going to be accompanied by Leo Levin, who is just an excellent author and who has spoken here before. And they're going to talk about Chris Economaki's life. Now, Bill Green, I'm looking out in the audience, I don't think you don't need any introduction, but Bill is our eminent historian. Any of you who have talked to him know that he just is a walking encyclopedia. And one of the fun things that Kevin and Kip and I do is we try to trip up Bill. We try to see if he doesn't know the answer to a question. And one day I was delighted because he was wrong when he gave me the answer. About 2 hours later, I realized I didn't know the subject and Bill was correct. But if you ask him about who was third in 1951 and what color the car was and what type of wheels, he'll tell you. He will tell you. Now, Bill, as some of you know, first started his interest in racing in 1948 when, as a young lad, he bought his first program, and that started his collection. He has a fantastic collection. Now, I think we have a wonderful collection here at the Racing Center. And I really wouldn't want to put our collection up against Bill's. He has so many items, and he goes to auctions, but he's been doing this for many, many, many years, way before people started collecting memorabilia. So he's the original source for so many things. We have requests from around the world, and we look in our archives, and Bill says, I think I have that one at home. And so he's able to fulfill so many requests. But not only is he a great historian and just the linchpin here at the Motor Racing Research Center, but he's a good friend. We went to school together, and we're delighted now in our old age to be working together. Bill Green.
Thank you very much.
I hope I don't put you to sleep now with a variety of things I have up here. So I want to start out with, this is George Hoffman's. He loaned me some stuff along with what I don't already have, but I don't have a real 1948 or 49 poster, but there's a real one. Wow. There was no 1948. The one you see at Walter Miller's place up there was a 4-piece large overlay of the program cover of 1948. There's the first real Watkins Glen Grand Prix, and you also see there's a AAA and an IndyCar on that because it was a joint SCCA AAA race. In 1950, it was a SCCA FIA AAA with the main races is an FIA race, but there were no championships until '53. So, but it authorized foreign participation. Now I'll start out here with Cuba. There are two Cuba. I don't have the third one, which was '60, but this is 1957. Now this, first I'll caution you, is not a real one. I bought dupes. I didn't have quite a lot of money. I was within $300 of getting this thing for real. But we wound up getting Cavallino magazine instead. But I got a duplicated one, and just last year, there's the program to go with it. Of course, you know it's in Spanish. I don't care. That's the program that goes along with the 1957 one, which they hoped that year to have a Formula One race, which they didn't. Then they hoped in '58 to have a Formula One race, which they didn't. But it also was when, just before Castro came to power, and they kidnapped Fangio just before the race. And so anyways, he didn't race. This is for the second Cuban Grand Prix. This is a repo, and I'll go on with Fangio in a minute. And there's a real one. And I know when I bought this from the guy in Dover, Delaware, he says, well, you know it's in Spanish. I said, I don't care. I know what it is. And so we bargained a little bit. And I said to him, well, he says, you make me an offer. And I said, well, $50. And his Nick got real tight. I says, okay, how about 75? Well, it got looser. And so finally we got up to $100 and he was happy. But he said, if I put it back on there, it goes for 200. So I've got both of the first 2 years. But this is a repo, and this is when Fangio was kidnapped. And the Castro sympathizers took Fangio and didn't do nothing bad to him. They took him and fed him, give him a bed to sleep in, watched the race, what there was of it, on television, and when they was done, they took him to the Argentinian embassy and dropped him off. But here's the funny thing about it is, some years later, he would go back, not every year, every once in a while, to visit these people. They were very good friends of his, but on a different thing, you know. Wow. And of course, the last of the Cuban races was in '60, and it was on an airfield within Havana. So, and then that was it. That was it. And Fangio, Moss won that. But anyways, going on, these are posters, but also gimmick things too. You see, this is, you put that up in the newsstand in those days. There's the first issue. This only lasted 2 years, this magazine, but it was great. That's a drawing of the Cunninghams coming through Stonebridge in 1951, and the first issue was in '52. Of course, the numbers are wrong on the Cunninghams, but anyways, that was your promotional tool, or a poster. So, that there, and now, what should I do next? Well, there's lots of things. We'll try to mix all this up so that you won't fall asleep. This is a Christmas card that Lucky Teeter, Hell Driver, sent to the organizers. And of course, Lucky owned Langhorne before he got killed. He also failed to qualify at Indy in 1939, but he's in the book there, it's the non-qualifiers. But anyways, Lucky's name was Earl M. Lucky Teeter, and he was from out in Indiana at Noblesville. And of course, you know, he raced bikes and cars. He also, as I say, owned Langhorne. His thrill show started in 1934. And of course, the last thrill show was, we were already into World War II. And it was at Indianapolis on the Indiana State Fairgrounds on July 5th, 1942. And they had a stunt where they did a ramp and he went through a cannon. Well, anyways, the car fell short, went into where he was supposed to land, and he was killed. Well, he didn't die immediately, but he died of a broken neck. They had to cut him out. But that was the last time he would ever perform, and the series of 4 shows was Cavalcade of Motorsports. Had he lived, he would have then joined the army and fought, you know, against the Japanese or the Germans or whatever. But this I got at Syracuse this last fall at the Salt City Antique thing. There's a guy in Rochester I know real well, and he keeps his eye out. But that's a Christmas card from Lucky Teeter.
Well, can you turn it upside down so we can read the other?
Oh, sure. Is that right? Yeah. That all folds up, and I elected to keep it that way.
Wow.
It's easier to store, it's protected, and it's a nice thing to have. And this here is a poster for the first NASCAR race at Watkins Glen in 1957.
Wow.
This I borrowed from the archives here in the International Motor Racing Research Library. And Buck Baker, of course, won this race. But that's rather neat. And if I can find it without, yeah, I stacked it right. This poster here is 1965, and I refer to it to change. It's easy to go this way, calling the ancient era. That was the first 3 NASCAR races, 57, 64, and 65. This was 65, before the modern era of 86. But that was the official poster for that, and there were sports car races. Previous year they didn't. And this year they had to start their grid spots because it rained. Stock cars don't run in the rain in those days. Sports cars did. So they went by points. That's the poster for that one. And let's see, what other goodies do I have here? This is Bath, New York Speedway. And on this one program that George brought me, lists, this is in the 50s, Bath Speedway. It also lists Towanda, which was Towanda, Pennsylvania, the VFW Speedway. And it also lists Chemung Speedrome, which had died in modern times and came back to life. But that there is one of the programs that you would have got there. This other one that George lent me is of Towanda, I believe. But there were several other racetracks they ran at, which was Southport, which is you had to cross the creek where the prison was, and the Glider City, Towanda. So, anyways, that's your programs of that time. Wasn't much. There were more ads in there, but it was fun if you saved them. They were great things to have. And you know, you can also solve a lot of problems saying so-and-so did this and that. Yeah, right there it is. Now, let's see what other things. I can't do that till we get around over here. And this other thing. There'll be a series of auto thrill shows. I just got excited over these hell drivers here last few years. This is Tompkins County Fair, the Joey Chitwood one of 1960. And that's when the fair was in Dryden. You know, you see posters today, they're all generated by computers. This is all printed. Great stuff. It's like circus posters. And the greatest, beautiful art there is. But see, this is like that Ken thing that Lucky Peter had. But that there, I got at Norwich 2 years ago from a guy down toward the city. He had that, and I'll show you another one I got from the same guy. But I didn't have a Tompkins County official one poster. I had just ones that were of just the regular fare. So, this one is Carlisle Fairgrounds. Carlisle Fairgrounds is no more as far as a fair. That's where you have the spring, fall, and individual other things at Carlisle, Pennsylvania. This is a Jack Kochman one. And I seen this 3 years. Yeah, I haven't been to Carlisle in 5 years. So we'll say before 2002. It was in the fall, so I went up and asked the guy what he wanted for it, and I said, gee, that's nice, and walked off. And on the way home, I had a sore backside. So in the spring, it was there again, and I thought maybe he'd be cheaper, but he wasn't, and I left it. It's like going and buying a car. You go out and kick the tires all over the lot for what you think you really want. So by fall, I didn't see it. I said, oh, it's gone now. So the next year, it was gone for both spring and fall, but at Hershey, it was there. So I went up to him and I said, is your price the same? And he says, yeah. I says, can I leave this here if I give you some money while I do the rest of the chocolate field? He says, by the way, you can. I paid $250 for it, but I never had a sore backside after that. And I'm really proud I could get my hands on a thing that said Carlisle Fair. I have a second one on tractor pulls I bought this year at Hershey. But that one there, I can tell you the story about kicking the tires. And I asked him, where'd you get this? And he says, at York, one of the York flea markets. So I'm very happy to have that. But that's one of the, you'll see many of the artwork is pretty much the same for Jack Kochman, only the years are a lot different. This Joey Chitwood one, there's another smaller one, is 1951. It's a little damaged, but I don't care. It's safe, it's preserved. And it says down below, this show was in the movie To Please a Lady. Yes, it was. The Chitwood show was. That's where Clark Gable kisses Barbara Stanwyck, and what she really wanted was a kiss, because she had a crush on him, you know, her character. And wound up going on to D&D and all that. But that's neat. And I got that from George Hoffman. It was a gift. And he says, you sure? And he said, oh yeah. By the way, George and I go to Hershey every year, so we have a lot of fun. And I probably could tell you some good stories, and I may tell you one. It's going to be nice, I hope. This is George and I, because we draw cartoons and Christmas cards. This is a Chemung County Fair one. This is 1953. The funny part about this is the fairgrounds is in Horseheads. You'll see in most of it, even the main fair poster will say at that time Elmira. But it's not Elmira, but this is 1953, and that's a Kochman. And I bought this at Hershey, I believe, a couple years ago. And now this poster here is called a pole poster. Now why do you think it's a pole poster? That's right. This is I never had a Ward beam. This is a Ward beam one at Otsego County Fair. You'd see them on poles. The normal ones are wrap around more, they're more winded. But that, I bought this from a guy from Albany that I've dealt with for years. And he got me a lot of the Chemung County Fair posters I've got that has nothing to do with the other things, you know, that go with it. So this is in 19, what did I put on it? Well, only when I bought it, but this is about 1985. The beams were performing there at that time. And let's see. There's one, two more. And I'll show you the other one. Tell me if I'm going too fast for your hopefully you're happy. This is the other one I got from the gentleman. This is Joey Chitwood. It's a 1951 from near New York, and that's Delaware County Fair. They only usually played one day, sometimes 2 shows. Then off you went. With Lucky Teeter, he played most of the fairs in this area. But as I say, he was an owner of Langhorne Speedway. I got this from a fella in Pennsylvania. It's Littleton Fair, which is no more. And that's before World War II. You'll notice B. Ward Beam, one and the same. And it's AAA races, not hell drivers. But it's neat. They didn't have too good a life where they were stored, but boy, the artwork is just great. I rotate all, this is 1936, got it written here. I rotate these on the walls every once in a while, but a lot of them have got UV protection, so they don't fade on some of the good colors. Now, there'll be some oohs and ahs, I hope. This one, this is a real Shangri-La. This is 1954.
What year, Bill?
1954. And that was given to me along with the Bath Speedway. And I got it covered, got it fixed and everything, and boy, that's a neat poster. I rotate that around. And that's the real Shangri-La, not 2. Nothing wrong with 2, but it's just... Okay, where are we going from here? I'll skip around on a lot of this stuff so you change of pace. Sit still. Now we have a Grand Prix Festival here. And I remember Mary Ann Shoemaker saying to me, did they ever do a poster? Because she wasn't involved as far as the overall chairmanship, because Rick Leekland was then. And I said, you sure did. So she took a picture of it. There's the first poster for the Grand Prix Festival. Now this idea was only supposed to be for 5 years, up to the anniversary. I said to Rick, first year, and also the next year, after the first year was done, and the next year, I said, it's going beyond the anniversary. And it has, 20 years. Now the thing about this, there was a flaw. You see this red here blends out the car. Now, the other one I have home, you can see the car better. It looks like a Sadler. So it makes you, if you're a poster collector, there are 2 posters. But that's the first Grand Prix Festival one that we had. The modification, the guy did this, took another spoke out of there because you got on a 2 or 3 spoke wheel, not 4 or 5. But that's the very first one in 1993. Let's see. As long as we're on that, here's one of 1995 poster of the festival. Now there's a reason why I showed this. If you've ever been around me long enough, you'll know I'm a Cunningham fan. And I was quite harmonious to get that on there. So that's Briggsy in the 52 race. It's on there. But we did there's been other things on these different posters. Now, these are both repos, because you can't really afford a lot of these. When Mercedes won this race, they used to send out the advertising what they did, and that's Tripoli of 39. That's when the Italians thought that they had the Germans spoofed, dropping the engine capacity at the Tripoli, all Italian races, to 1.5 liters. In 6 months, Mercedes built 2 race cars, and they finished 1-2. But the next year, of course, in 40, they were engaged in the war, and the Italians in the 158 Alpha one, then Giuseppe Farina, and the last Tripoli. But it has a circuit on there, an 8-point-mile circuit. Some parts of it's there because when they lengthened the runways at Wheelus Air Force Base, they knocked down the grandstand, the pits, and you ain't got enough hands. A lot of this in here, this part here all exists yet. Now, this is a repo of the 1955, of the year of the big accident. A couple of years they had different color compensations, and also the clock was colored. But you can buy these at the Le Mans souvenirs. I didn't, but I had somebody that was over there and I bought several. And I thought they were rather neat. Don't ever get me collecting stuff, because you but it's fun, don't get me wrong. This was a dual poster in 1958. 11th annual Sports Car Watkins Glen Grand Prix, first Formula Libre race. Now some people that went cut this half off, and several people said, "Oh, we got the complete poster." I said, "No, look at that. That's the complete poster." And I remember it was not very warm for that weekend, but this next one I have here, if I have it in right order. Let me know. When was that one? Oh, here's one. Yep, there we go. We're in good shape. This Formula Libre was the first year Moss came. And the first time midgets ran here. It was a USAC race, as was the 1958 race, because SCCA still had their head stuck in the sand because they were amateurs. So USAC had a road racing series starting in 1958 that ran to 1962. So anyways, we froze to death on that on race day. I mean, it started out nice, and then the ones that were there will always remember. But anyway, Sterling Moss won the race in a Yeoman credit car, and Eddie Johnson in the midget was second. So that was neat there. Now this here is the first of this poster of 60. This shows Moss as the main billing along with Oliver Gendebien and Joe Bonnier. Same picture. Next poster, changed around here. Jack Brabham, 1959 60 World's Champion. Then these here. These were red. All of that lettering was red. Picture was the same. Curtain raisers to the Grand Prix of the United States. This one, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care where the U.S. Grand Prix is. The rightful home is right there. And that's the first time. Now, if you're a collector, there are two posters. Okay, you're saying, what the heck why is there two posters? The original one did not have this sticker on here. It had Phil Hill, world's champion, Ferrari, Trips, Ginther, and the rest of these fellas. Well, of course, after the Italian Grand Prix, Trips was killed and the championship was decided. The old man didn't want to send any car. There was lots of money to get Phil Hill a car here, a Ferrari, but the old man wouldn't do it. So Phil was Grand Marshal. So this was the replacement for who really came. But that's the first U.S. Grand Prix. Now I'll stay in U.S. Grand Prix for a minute because I want to show you this one. And Bob Newell's familiar with this one. He liberated this baby.
Yep, that's a rare one.
There's 100 of those, he told me, that were done.
It's all over pretty.
Anyways, this is the first U.S. Grand Prix at Sebring. And those days, Alec Ullman had nice posters. If it wasn't this 12-hour for several years were Zito's.
he was the artist. But anyways, the 1960 race, there was not enough time when they finally decided to go to Riverside to do a poster and all that, so there never was a, so 61 was the next one. But I wanted to show you that. So that's is a neat one. Now I'll show you a Zito. Zitos are beautiful. Here's a Zito. 60. I think, yeah. 61, Alec didn't want to spend a lot of money, so what they did was change the date and kept the same poster. But for 59, they had he was big on, Zito was big on orange trees, and there's oranges and all that, and then a car going by. And then there, in 58, there was a different arrangement, but it had a tree in it and all that. And what was I going to say? Oh, these things don't come cheap, because on eBay last, 2 years ago, there was a 59 and a 58, and they went for darn near $2,000. Zito's last poster at Sebring was 63, which I have. It's of the pit area and all that. But Alex, I always liked Alex ARCF thing, but that's a great poster. I got this at Carlisle one year for about $150. Now, let's see, what can I start with here? Finish up, I guess. And we'll do these. Nobody's asleep? Good. This is Sebring 1964, and I really like that because of the setting and the ARCF on the cone. And so anyways, I used to write and get these and from my collection, and I put some up. This is a real French Grand Prix at Rouen. I may mispronounce that. And this is a year Gurney won in the Brabham at Rouen, because at Rouen in '62 he won the Porsche, the Flat 8. Let's see. Now this here, I got another one, but it's a different deal. And this is Dunkirk's last year. Western New York raced at Dunkirk. And this came out of the Spanky Smith collection. And then the next year they went to Nelson's Ledges with the Lake Erie Invitational. But this poster also, I had it in a show at Albany called Racing Across New York State back about 1988. So anyways, that was one of the ones that I really like. I like this because of the Cunninghams, but that's a vintage one. It was at Le Mans. That's of 1953, because there's the C5R. The other's the C4RK and the C4R. But I really like that, and that's why I got Brian Redmond to get me one, because he was the organizer. So, let's see, I got one more Sebring one. I don't know where I got it. It's over here, I think. Yep. This is the Sebring I went to when I was stationed in Pensacola just before I transferred. The year before, Jim Hall had won, and that was on the cover. And it means day and night. This night and day. It's a little like the Seneca County Fair poster I've got with a clown with an umbrella and a lantern. What it meant was, it said on there, day and night. And that's a neat poster. I had 2 or 3 of them, and in '66, and I had one in my locker on the base, which was just neater than anything. Let's see, what else did I have here? Put it somewhere, didn't I? No, I didn't pull it out, did I? Oop, I didn't. This is a neat one. New York City, Renault had a press conference before the 6 hour. Now this is a generic, this is the regular poster. They cut the bottom off and put that in there. There were 3 of them done. It was done with a piece of tape. And Pete Johnson, who was the marketing man for Grand Prix Corporation, says, you need to have this for your collection. I've kept it out of the light, but I framed it, and there it is. So, I don't know whatever happened to the other 2, but I know I got one of them. Let's see. I don't know if I was all the way back in this one. Oh. This one here is I have all of the 1970 Can-Am posters, but I didn't bring them all. There's 11 of them. But this is Edmonton in 1970. I figured I'd collect all of them for that year, and I did, plus the programs, which was neat. And Edmonton's in central Canada, way out in the prairie. This is a real Monaco. I'll shift it so everybody can see it. I forget. Yeah. You'll see a couple others. I bought this from somebody in Europe. But anyways, that's neat. It's 1978. Try to get this side done and we'll work on the others. This here is the first Trans Am SCCA National Weekend in 1968. I have all of those. Now when I say Dago red, that's the colors. 71 it was that color with a Camaro. But this is 68 with the top contending cars and a national car. This is the 40th anniversary, one of the 40th anniversary ones at WGI. I had that done when I did an exhibit with the anniversaries, with one of the Jags on it. 40 years ago. Hard to believe. I got that all done there. This here is the 20th anniversary one. Watkins Glen, USRC, for the USRC races in June in 1967. But that is a neat one. We have also a NASCAR one. Not the very first one, but I have that of the modern era. This is 93. But I liked it because of the background. Those buildings are historic as far as every picture you see, you'll see Huey's farm in the background. And of course, that's when Bud was at the Glen. So now, this one here, I bought this last fall at Hershey, and it's Pine Bowl, which I believe is there, but they don't race. It's Troy, but it's near Albany. And this says starting April 10th. That's what that 10th is. And it's 1949. I have another one, which is a year older. See, the admission's a whole buck. That's that was a big deal. So now, let's see. Oh, good one. I have to go over here first. I only brought 2 of these. I have all but 2 of this series. And this is the second Mexican Grand Prix. This was the first championship race. In 1962, it was a non-championship race where Ricardo Rodriguez got killed in practice. But that's from the 62 race, the picture. And the next one, which I stayed in the right deal with, I hope, is the very last one. And this is 1970. And this was the year you seen Jackie Stewart out persuading the spectators to go back behind the fences so they could race. Prior to this, the Mexican Army patrolled the spectator fences with machine guns. And around the Olympic time, there was a hoo-ha went on, and so they eventually lost the Mexican Army with arms. So that was the last time until the modern time that the Mexican race was held in Mexico City. But I have 69, 68, and 66, and 64 home. So that there. This is another Monaco one that I bought from the same fellow. This is 79. I'll swing them around so everybody can see. They were quite colorful. You know, when Bernie took over doing posters, they weren't the best looking things. This happens to be the beginning of Bernie. This is the first Phoenix race, which was supposed to be 5 years. It only lasted 3 because nobody had come to Phoenix in the street. But I had a deal with a girl that wanted a picture in the program, so I said, here's the deal. You get the picture for free. Every year I get a program and a poster, and she was very good about that. So that's the first year of the Bernie ones. This is the first motorcycle race at Watkins Glen under AMA, sponsored by the Western New York Harley-Davidson dealers. I also have the last one in 62. This is 60. This is 1958. The drawings are nice and all that. You know, all that stuff in those days were great as far as, you know, artwork. Today's, yeah, the today's are all right, but you go back and look at all the other stuff, and it's a little different as far as I'm concerned, but it's nice. This here was a group headed up by Alec Ullman and Walter Van Schinfeld. They raced at Sebring, they raced at Daytona, they were here 3 times. Fall of 1964, when the Mexican race was on. This is 65 in June, and there was one in August. But then motorcycles came again in the bankruptcy time under WERA, no spectators. And then WERA also was back during WGI during the week. And then they also had California Bike School. So there's been motorcycles here off and on over the years. This is the first and only midget poster. In 1963, the day after the Glen Classic, they used the full 2.3 without the chicane. But midgets were back in 1990, I got it wrote down here because I had it. I don't want to mess it up. 93 twice. They were TQ midgets from up at out of Buffalo, and they were here for the 6-hour weekend and also for the Glen Nationals. They used the inner loop. So we've had midgets here along with the Formula Libre of 1959. This is one of my favorites, and I got this from Spanky Smith's collection. This is the first Formula One Grand Prix of Canada at Mossport. I have the last one at San Jovite in 70, but I have a lot more of Mossport and some of Montreal. But I got that, and the colors are just great in that. Now this Targa Florio is real. These things go $2,000 up. Depends on the years. But that's 1971. I just got out some paper and typed up a letter and asked them if I could buy or obtain, program, and a poster. There it is. The next year it was, 1973 was the last year it was a World Championship event. And I wrote to see if I could get a 73 poster, and they didn't send it that, but they sent the program. That was all right with me. But this here has changed a little bit over the years. You look in some of the things that advertise them, and you'll see this a different thing, but it's basically the same thing on the Bill Body Targa Florio book, the artwork.
Who's the artist, Bill? Like Brian
It's an Italian.
Guglielmo?
I don't know who it is.
Well, they used pre-war cars in the poster for.
Oh yeah, yeah,
For the 71 race.
yeah. That was on the short Targa Florio, 45 miles. The long one was about 90, and there was an inner one about 85. But most of them were all on the short one, with the exception of 37, 38, 39, and 40. They were in Floral Park in Palermo. Their circuit race. Of course, the war was coming and all that. But anyways,
Bill, who's the artist on that? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't, you can come up and look at it if you want to, when it's over. But anyways, that is one of my favorite ones to get. I don't have a Mille Miglia. You see, the Targa Florio, after the Mille Miglia accident of 1957, there was no actual race, it was a road rally. Then they went back in 58 to 73 and had the race. But the difference was you had practice. You didn't have to go in the run-of-the-mill traffic and watch out for carts, animals, people, and all that, as they did in the Mille Miglia. There was never an official. Mercedes had 2 practice cars, 300 SL gull wings, and they managed to collect a few animals, I think. Now, everybody gets all excited about this. The biggest rock concert in the United States, bigger than Woodstock, bigger than Ontario. Now, if you're a poster collector of that, there are 2 of these. And you're saying, wow, there's 2 of them. Yeah, there is, but the artwork's all the same. See where it says Ticketron? On the other one, there's no Ticketron. That makes 2 posters. You're a poster collector. It's like the 78 U.S. Grand Prix. One says Chasing the Title, one says World's Champion. About 2,000 for the first, and then there's a lot done on the champion with Mario. But anyways, I put that in there, and that's rather neat. This is another real Monaco, 64. You see the European artwork. Some years, I've got the bigger formatted Monaco ones from 1930. I don't think there was ever one done for 29, And they're about like this, and it cost a fortune to frame them. And I've got up to 57. There were two 57s for some reason. This is 1970 Can-Am. This was the first time Road Atlanta had it. And there was a lot of bullshit politics about this, how they happened to get it. But Bridgehampton was originally scheduled for this race, and there was, that summer they had a lot of rain and it washed the circuit. So they went down to Road Atlanta. And that was the first time that Road Atlanta had. That's pretty nice. I quite like that. I think one of the nicer, colorful ones is Laguna in 1970. I thought that was, the color combination was just great. When you see the Can-Am ones, they're all 1970. I went to this race. This is at Saint-Jovite. As you see, it's in French. So, but that was the second race of the season that year.
Bill, we're wondering, it's odd that they use Denny Holmes' car in every one of those.
Wonder
instead
why.
of number 4.
Wonder- I wonder why.
Number 5.
Unfortunately, Brucey was gone.
Ah,
The first race of the season was at Mossport. And this is the Mossport one. Labatt's was the sponsor, and you could get your tickets at Mac's Milk Store for advance sale. I never was to Can-Am's at Mossport. I was there for Grand Prix, but I was to San Jovite for Can-Am's, but not the 2 Grand Prix. But that's a nice poster. I have another one, it's a stand-up one. This is the Watkins one, which I think is quite dynamic, and it shows motion. At least on the Porsche.
it's McLaren's.
And this here is Mid-Ohio the same year.
I like that.
I hear Marcus poster, was that Michael Turner?
You betcha. Yep. Now, where am I? Am I done? No, I'm not. Nope. I think I'm done with all the stacks, yeah. Some other things that George let me have was, these were the drag races at Watkins Glen. This is just one. We copied them. This is 1957. There were 57 and 58. There were 2 events during the months of July, August, September, and 1 in October. And these were just page, 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 page. And then 58 was on the same format. And of course I was going to say, well, I wonder who sanctioned these, but I give it away. It was NASCAR, one of the many things they were into. These here are programs from the thrift shows, and this happened to be Joey Chitwood. George got these at Chemung County Fair. George is a good pack rat like me, he saves them. And there's a Jack Kochman from the same, which is rather nice. These advertised the motorcycle races, first one, which were handout leaflets. But they were light fishing on both sides, and they laid out and you picked them up and all that. George also let me take this here with a Chitwood, which is nice. And I think I've showed you everything that I have here. There's a story on Jack Kochman here and all that, and Joey Chitwood if you want to look at it. But anyways, that's pretty good timing. I didn't get you to sleep. It was almost an hour.
Good job.
And but there are more posters I have that are not framed that will soon be framed down the road of road racing and some IndyCar stuff, NASCAR stuff. I collect county fair posters too, and I got a big, nice run of Chemung County, but I also have other fairs that I've been to. At least I've got one of their fair when I was there. But anyways, that's some of the offshoots that go along with, got me excited about going with the Hell Drivers or the Daredevils. Or
How many posters do you have, Bill?
You see what's here, and there's more framed home, like the 1955 one. That's my oldest real one. There's a print file full, and then there's others in another print file which are full. Over 1,000, 2,000, you know, that I haven't done much with. I'll get to you in a second. But anyways, that there, plus the blueprints to the tracks, and to Jody's Joke, and to the interlude, are in that one print file. And of the buildings that were or never happened at the racetrack. Little Steve.
What is your most prized racing poster?
Annie Watkins Glen, the Targa Florio. Yeah. Rick, I'll get to you too. Go ahead.
The Watkins posters produced locally, the smaller ones?
The ones, some were, they were offset, done at the review. But the cardboard one, well, I think the cardboard one were done somewheres that in those days that they did whole print. The 55 one has the 54 winner on it, 56 has a grid for 55 and all that. And, you know, I think that's what they were done.
During the Chemung County Fair a long time ago, they used to have the motorcycles that went around the,
Yeah.
I don't know, do you have any posters of them?
No, but I remember Bloomsburg this last year, they had one of those. First time in a long time. Hmm? What?
Yeah, it was like Joey Chitwood, was there a name that went along with those?
I can't remember, but I went and seen them. They changed a lot. That was one of the many attractions to come to a county fair or the state fair, you know. And I never seen it, let's put it that way. They probably was some. And with this literature that done by the Grand Prix Corporation and all that, right up until after the U.S. Grand Prix came here, they'd have tourists could pick these info things up. And even 1953 is the oldest one I've got of what happened, what the races were and all that.
I've got to tell you, this sign over here, the original start finish, this is Bill Green's. He generously has loaned it here on display. And during the year, he has many of his posters up here.
Yeah. Who had that? Yeah,
The Turner posters, were they printed in Ithaca?
I think so. Yeah, they were. They first started in 1969 at the US of A Grand Prix, and then they put them on for 6 hour. And the one that wasn't ever exciting to me was the 5-star. It was, I think, done in a big hurry. And of course, you know, by the time you got to the bankruptcy, close to the bankruptcy, they couldn't afford only one Turner, and that was for the US of A. The rest were all, well, you might better say they were pinching pennies. And the very last one, there were two of them. One had a yellow and a red background on it for Trans Am. No, IndyCar, which was kart, and the Nationals. Well, the kart part was postponed, the Nationals was run, and then on the traditional US Grand Prix days, they had another one. And it was gray, drab, ugly looking thing. Of course, when you got money, you do what you have. And that was the last professional race. It was a kart IndyCar race in 1981 in October. Yes?
When the motorcycles raced up here, which course did they race on, and why did it never catch on at Watkins Glen like at other tracks?
I don't know. You know, the first year, well, 58, 59, and 60, they ran counterclockwise. And 60 was the year that at least 2 riders were killed. So in order to make that long plunge down through there to the start-finish line, they ran them clockwise. And they, then, I don't know whether the enthusiasm or what, but anyways, after 62, they didn't make much money. Now, SVRA one year had vintage motorcycles 2 years in a row. And they even had sidecars. And this group that was Alec Ullman's group there, they had the sidecar division. You know, to watch sidecar guys, you aren't for the along for the ride. The rider's doing most of the riding, and you're doing this. You see them go back and forth. You know, John Surtees, when he was young, rode sidecar for his dad. Oh, so did Dennis Jenkinson for one of the world's champions. So you're leaning down, going around to keep things up. You're only above the ground, your head about like that. Wow. You know, and the same way with the Grand Prix bikes today, your knee is only about that far from the when you lay that thing over. But I don't know why. I guess it didn't appeal very much. So they went and did the USAC midgets one year. Yes.
Bill, what happens to the original art from the Turner posters? Does some individual own most of it,
Sure.
or is it scattered, or where
No,
is
it's in one place.
It is?
Not too far from you. It's in Rochester.
it? It is,
Larry Kessler.
really?
Yeah.
We had it on exhibit last year, didn't we, Bill? Right
Yes,
here?
we did. Some of it, not all of
Oh,
it.
yeah, I remember that was.
That's where that went. And that, well, I won't say much, but you'll kind of get the idea. That was done before the bankruptcy, final bankruptcy stuff. So, but anyways, that's where all that went. And if you went to the vintage Can-Am reunion, you see that they changed the poster from Formula One, 69, to Can-Am. And of course, they had to eliminate the old Kendall Tower and the press building and all that. That's what they used in Michael Turner. But that's posters as far as I can go unless I go home and sort some more.
We'll wait.
I collected my first poster, race poster, was the 55 Sports Car Grand Prix. And I've been at it ever since. And I've had to play catch up on some of this stuff. Because I wasn't too enthused at times about the first year of the NASCAR, but I should have got it. And then there was also big posters, like so, of the drag races, which I wasn't too excited. I was too much of a sports car man at that time. But it's been fun, you know, along with other things I collect are credentials, pictures, stuff like that. Latest piece of memorabilia, credentials, as I got on eBay, is a press card. 1949, says speed age on it. And the publisher signed it, and the guy's name's there, and that's what you showed to get your press pass, or media pass. That you were a bona fide press person. So anyways, motor racing's been quite a big part of my life. And other things I collect, I don't know if you want to know, I can tell you. But I'm a big Hopalong Cassidy fan, and a John Wayne. I like Roy and I like Gene too. I'm a big Hoot Gibson, Ken Maynard, and Bob Steele man. And I collect Ida Lupino pictures. Along with
What do you do for a hobby?
So that's why it took you 4 months to move.
Yes, it did. I also collect badges of Indy. Now, when I say badges, they're pins. They call them badges. That pin's good for all month of May until race day. Then you have to have the back card, and the number tells you where you can go. And there's a bronze and there's a silver. And the silver will let you go in the pits on up until race day. You got your number then controls if you go in the pits or out on the grid before the start. I always had a 15, which allowed me half an hour before the actual race. Then I had to get out of there. But that's, you know, that's some of the stuff I collect. There's some other little odd things. I have a good set of collection of the Havana Glen down here in Montour, Waterfalls. And I have all I know of postcards of Watkins Glen at the races. So, that's it. Yes?
I had heard from a couple of motorcycle road racers at one time that one of the problems they had was the fencer being too close to the track. If somebody fell down, they really hit hard and they would skid off into the
Well,
gravel of the
in-
woods.
in
Is there any
those-
truth to that?
In those days, you didn't have much guardrail. But in the modern times, when we rebuilt the circuit in '71, we went for a guardrail like no tomorrow. And that's what, when you got these non-spectator motorcycle races, you had to walk, same way with go-karts. You could really get hurt. So, that's my answer to that. You only had guardrail at the inside of the 90 and around the first turn, and some, there was some up past eventually past the east tunnel and around, this is on 2.3 and around back. That was about it. The rest was fairly open. So you had trees to contect with back far a ways. Sometimes if you got a miss, you could collect one of those trees. So, but anyways, that's it as far as I can. I hope I was able to make you excited.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yes, yes.
Where did you get those colorful Sebring posters?
I sent in the mail and got them. I have some of the modern day ones, they're bigger, and I haven't got them put together. The earlier ones, I have, they're nice. The early Sebring ones were just plain poster. I think by '57, that's when they had Zito. And then Walter Haisner had Michael Turner stuff from '67 on for several years. Now I guess that's it. Okay. Thank you so much.